So this is lecture number 6 on measure theory. So we have discussed what is called measure, what is sigma algebra. Then there is special type of sigma algebra called Borel sigma algebra, and we define a length measure on that, which is called something called Lebesgue measure also. But Lebesgue measure also can define on a more general sigma algebra called Lebesgue sigma algebra. It's Lebesgue, the sets are called Lebesgue measurable set, but we are not going on to that in detail. So we just define our length measure on the Borel sigma algebra, because Borel sigma algebra is nice rather than Lebesgue sigma algebra, and we can define much more measure, not only the length measure, like probability measure on Borel sigma algebra. So what is the construction? Just take a quick look on that. So we start with one can start with this type of interval, or one can start with this type of closed interval. So actually these are equivalent. Why these are equivalent like that? So what is that? Say there are two definitions. So definition 1 says that length of A minus B, okay, we assume that A less than or equal to B. So we took A less than or equal to B. Now length of A minus B, the first definition 1 put like that, and definition 2 we say it is L1. Say we'll show that these two are L and L1 are two same. On closed set, this we define like B minus A. Now for definition 1 for length and other for the measure, every general measure is countably additive. What is called countably additive? Countably additive. So additive. What is the meaning of countably additive? Countably additive means if for any measure mu, for a sigma to R plus union 0, it can be 0, it can be infinite. Non-negative real number including the infinity. Countably additive means if A1, A2, AN in script that F, then the union is also, you know, for the sigma algebra, this is in script F. That F may not be a sigma algebra. Actually, countably additive defined on any semi algebra or algebra also. But then we have to take the extra condition that if A1, A2, AN, A1, A2, AN is in F and the union also in F, that you have to take as an extra condition. But if once this script F is sigma algebra, then this infinite union is automatically there. It is by the definition of sigma algebra. But if it is semi algebra or other algebra, then that union may not be in F, and if that union is not in the F, we can't talk about the measure on that. So measure is defined on that semi algebra or algebra script F. So we have to we have to assume that the union is also in F. So it is not only for sigma algebra, countably additive defined on the semi algebra or algebra also. And now, what is the definition? Definition is, so sorry, there is one more thing. AI and AJ are disjoint. So AI is disjoint. So AI intersection AJ is phi for all I not equal to J. Then union is, by definition, it is a sum over I equal to 1 to n. Remember this, each term in right hand side is a series, is a non-negative. So that summation is defined. So either it is diverged to infinity, that is equal to infinity, or it is converged. It can't be oscillate because the all term are non-negative. So non-negative term of sequence of term cannot be oscillate. So that's why the right hand side is defined. So countably additive means this. Now this L and L1 and L2 both are, L1 and L both are countably additive. That we have to assume because for any measure we have to assume this thing, countably additive. There is one more thing is called countable subadditivity. Countably subadditive. Countably subadditive definition is this: mu of union this. Assume that AI and union AI is in F is less than or equal to sum over this. There is the disjoint condition is not needed here. It's called countably subadditive. But If it is countably additive, then it's countably subadditive. So once the disjoint union has a summation like probability, then the union measure of the union is less than or equal to the summation like probability. But the other way is not true. If union is less than or equal to this, then may not be, if the disjoint union may not be equal. Any union it is less than or equal to, for disjoint union may be less than, may not be equal. So countably additive implies countably subadditive, but otherwise not true. Now take the length, say length L measure. L is a length measure and L1 is another length measure. We'll show that these two are measured is same. How do you show? So if I took that L as my measure, then what happened? Then if I put A equal to B, what happened? If A equal to B, then A, this set is phi, but this set is A. This set is A. If A equal to B, only A, singleton A. So by length measure, length L measure, this phi, length of phi is 0. Okay, this is true, length of phi is 0. But in L1, length of set containing A also 0. If you put A, B equal to A, then length of closed interval A is 0. That means for the L1 measure, L1 length measure, the set containing only A, singleton set, is 0. But whether this is 0 or not, we don't know. Whether this is 0 or not, we don't know. That is the question for L. Because if we put A equal to B, then it is not a singleton A, it is a phi set. But we can easily prove that L measure is also 0 of a singleton set. How? That is trivial, because we can choose that thing, say A minus delta to A, this set, and this is delta for any delta positive. Now singleton A is a subset of this set, and by countably additive we can show that this length is less than or equal to length of this. So any subset length measure of a subset is less than or equal to measure of the superset. That is true for any general, not for measure, it is true for any countably additive measure, just a countably additive function, not measure, but countably additive function. It is true for any countably additive function. Now this is but this is delta. That means, so length of singleton A is less than delta for all delta, and that implies, since it is true for all delta, that implies that length of singleton A is 0. So it needs some work to show that this length of singleton A is 0 for L. But for singleton A, for L1 it is 0, is just obvious from the definition. So L1 is nothing new. So if we assume that singleton is 0, we can, here L for L, it is proved that we can easily prove that it is 0. So L is actually L1. L and L1 is same, because once the singleton is 0, then L of this A to B closed interval is also B minus A. You can write that in terms of two different two disjoint set, like set containing A unions open interval half open half closed AB, and that is singleton A length plus, because they are disjoint, A to B. So this is just 0 plus B minus A, so it is B minus A. So that means for closed interval also B minus A. And for other way, if since L1, the closed interval, in the closed interval for L1 it is A minus B. So what about the open interval? So B less than greater than equal to A. Now put A equal to B, then length in L1, the singleton A is 0. So once singleton A is 0, we just again by L1, this length of this A closed interval is length of this singleton A. This is true for any measure actually, not for L and L1. This is true for any measure. L1 of this A to B is this. So this is 0. So these two are equal actually. So what about this L or L1? You start with L or start with L1. These actually both are same. So you can start with anything, any length. So these are countably additive. Now we can prove that we can define on the length on this only this type of set. Now, only this type of set, and from this you can prove that length of this also b minus a, and you can find the length of this as infinite, length of this as infinite for any b real, and length of this is a to infinity is also infinite. Now, what about the complement? So, can you define the length of a complement of an interval? Yes, because a complement of an interval is nothing but union of two different intervals. We know what is the we have definition for two interval. To each interval we know what is the length or what is the measure of what is the probability, and these two are set at disjoint, so we can easily find by the countable additive property what is the length of this complement set. So we can find the length. This is technically called Lebesgue measure. The Lebesgue measure of set. Lebesgue measure basically is length for an interval. So we can find the length of or Lebesgue measure of all intervals or complement of that intervals. Now, the union of this intervals may not be interval. If union of this interval is interval, then it's okay. We know what is the say we can easily prove that. So we know the length of a to b is b minus a. Okay, b greater than or equal to a. B minus n, and length of b to c, it is just c minus b. So these two are disjoint, and take the union. So union is again a length, again an interval, and that is a to c, and that is c minus a, and that is true. You just add these two, and you will get c minus a. So if the intervals are union is again interval, no harm. This is actually the same as the length. But question, if the interval union of the interval is not an interval, then what happens? Then this union of the interval is not an interval, but union of the interval is a Borel set. So now we generalize the class. Now there is now consider a set of all intervals. We know what is the length of that. Next, put in the class. So this is actually constructive thing. We construct in the three different steps. First step, in the box we put all intervals. We put all intervals in this box, and we find the measure of that. Or length measure, whatever, or length measure, or Lebesgue measure. So we find the Lebesgue measure or length on the interval in the step 1, and that is by definition. That is obvious. From 3 to 5, what is the length? That is 2. That is obvious, natural choice. Now we put all the complement also here. Now complement is the union of two intervals. So you can easily, again, in the step 2, in the step 1. Step 1 is just the definition, and step 2 we just measure all this, find the length of all complement of the all union, all length intervals, and the complement of the intervals is in union of two intervals, and we know what is the length of these two intervals by step 1, and then we just add them. So in step 2 we are just extend our measure in more sets. Now the sets are all intervals and their complement. In the step 2 we are going to step 3 we are going to define the length or this Lebesgue measure in step 3. In step 2 the all intervals, so intervals say I and their I complement. In step 3 we put all I and I complement and all the union of such a thing, so union of all I's, countably many I's. Now this unions of all countably many I's or their complement, I or their complement, this need not be a interval or a complement of interval, but this is not in the step 2. Now we can easily define measure on that by countable additivity. If any set which is union of intervals or complement of the interval. The complement of interval is actually again a union of intervals. So actually all union of intervals, and all union of intervals is just we can define by countable additivity. If these two union are not disjoint, then the union is again an interval, and if the two disjoint, then just the length is sum of these two. So like say 1 to 5, one interval, another interval say 3 to 7, that union is 1 to 7, the interval is, so length is 6. And if 1 to 5, union 7 to 10, that means 1 to 5, 4, 7 to 10, 3, so 4 plus 3, 7. The length of this union is 7. So now we can define the length measure or Lebesgue measure on this type of set. All intervals are complement at their union. Now we have to check whether their complement and again their union is also in there. In step 4 we can do that, and I'm not going to details in the step 4. Finally we reach to the Borel-Sigma algebra. You know, this is actually Borel-Sigma algebra. You start with the intervals and take the union and then their complement and again union, complement, any sort of thing. We find the all Borel set, and this is called Borel-Sigma algebra. And finally we define the length of the Borel-Sigma algebra. And this is not only for the length. We can actually extend any measure like probability or integration, Riemann integration, or any countable measure, or any measure in same way, same generalization we have. And there's a last step from this union of countable union, the complement and their union, to go to the Borel's, find a measure on the Borel set is a famous and renowned theorem, measure theory. It's called Kara-Theodori extension theorem. This Kara-Theodori extension theorem actually says if you have a measure on intervals or their complement, you can extend that measure to the Borel-Sigma algebra. Details you can find in any textbook. So this is a very important theorem called Kara-Theodori extension theorem, and by Kara-Theodori extension theorem we can say that we can define a measure on Borel-Sigma algebra, which is actually a length measure, but we will technically will not say the length, we will say the Lebesgue measure. Lebesgue measure is nothing but a length, our same concept of length. Now this extension can be do with any other measure, not only for the Lebesgue or length measure. So one of the such a measure is like a counting measure. This counting measure is also very important. So it just, you have to count the number of elements of the set. Say for any set A, say set containing 2, 3, 5, the measure of this is called counting measure. Counting measure. Actually, you can define on the Borel-Sigma algebra. Counting measure, mu is a counting measure. Then mu of A is just 3. Just number of elements. It's called counting measure. And say if it is interval, say 1 to 2, now how many numbers of elements are there? Infinite. So in that case, it is just infinity. Infinite elements. This is called counting measure. There are several measures also, like choose a Borel set, A is Borel, and now choose a Borel-Sigma algebra on R. Choose any set B. This is fixed. A is Borel, fixed. Now for any all B, we define like that. Measure of B is just put it mu 0, okay, or mu A. Say better is A is fixed. We define that mu A again a measure, mu A again a measure from Borel-Sigma algebra to that is real, positive, union, 0, non-negative, and infinite. So this is just, we can define like mu of A intersection B. That is also a measure. You can easily prove that is also a measure. How this, for example, take A like say take say A is all Q or natural numbers. Say. Now, if I want to find, if we want to find what is the this measure, when measure with respect to A of a set, say 7 to 30.5, say closed. What is that? That means it is just intersection of that 7 to 30.5 in intervals with this natural number set. And how many elements are there? So it is just from 8 to 30, it is just 23. This measure is 23, and you can easily prove that it's also a measure. This countably additive and this all this thing, non-negativity, you can easily prove that. So this is again a measure, and this type of measure is very important because it is actually we are fix some A and then find the measure, and then we change this A, and we are actually is a collection of measure. We find the collection of measure, and then from that we actually extend our a new measure from this collection of measure, and that needs some little bit work. And this is two techniques are there. One is called monotone convergence theorem. This is in the syllabus, but not I'm not going into that. The monotone convergence theorem, and one is very important technique. It's called bootstrap principle. Bootstrapping, you can find this type of measure of in higher or in a more general set. So this is the some typical type of measure and countably additivity thing, and this is true for not only for countably measure counting measure, not only for the Lebesgue measure. It is true for probability as well as your integration theory. Any Riemann or Riemann-Stieltje integral. So this is actually a different type of measure on Borel-Sigma algebra, but we can define some measure on some lesser in subset of Borel-Sigma algebra, smaller class of that than Borel-Sigma algebra, or we can define some measure on more larger class like Lebesgue measurable set. But we are our standard sigma algebra is Borel-Sigma algebra, and we can define all such a type of this probability and integration, Riemann integration, Riemann-Stieltje integral, then counting measure, then length measure on this Borel-Sigma algebra. One thing is important that you can find Borel-Sigma algebra on R2. What is called the Borel-Sigma algebra? Now for Borel-Sigma algebra R2 or Borel-Sigma algebra Rn is also important, but in our case, we just need Borel-Sigma algebra R2. What is a Borel-Sigma algebra R2? In R2 means it is plane, and here in Borel-Sigma algebra on R, the basic sets are the intervals, like these intervals. Intervals are the basic thing. Intervals, it may be open, close, or maybe both open, whatever. Okay, that's both open. That will be better. Both open set is the basic set. It's also called basis set. But for R2, we need a closed rectangle. The closed rectangle. So we can find a measure on that, and that measure is also called Lebesgue measure. But this is now it is area. In our sense, it is area measure, but this measure is also called Lebesgue measure in R2. And obviously, this is if it's say it is coordinate is a comma b. This is a comma. Sorry, it can't be a comma c comma b. And if it is a comma d and it is c comma d, and then this measure of this set, say this set is say a, this measure of this a set. So what is a actually? A is nothing but the Cartesian product of two intervals a to c cross b to d. This Cartesian product of these two intervals is a rectangle, closed rectangle. Area of this two closed rectangle is obviously d minus v into c minus a. Oh, one thing you have to choose a c greater than equal to a and d greater than equal to b. Otherwise, it will be negative. Measure cannot be negative. So this is the measure. This is the area measure, and also called Lebesgue measure in 2-dimension R2, Borel-Sigma algebra R2. Now, again, we have a rectangle like intervals. Then we with the disjoint union of rectangles, then their complement, and the complement also union of some rectangles. Then there again their union, and this process going on, and finally we reach to the Borel-Sigma algebra on R2. Similarly, we extend our measure area in that sense. We first define our measure on a rectangle, then their union of the rectangle, countable union of the rectangle, then their on the complement, then slowly as these sets are going larger, the class is larger, our measure is defined on the larger classes, like that. And that needs some monotone convergence theorem and bootstrap principle. I am not going to the details in this details proof. in this video. So we can similar like in R1 in one dimension, we can do it for R2 and in Rn also in general case. But this is, takes some technical. There are some technical issues on for Rn. So in that it's called hyper plane or hyperspace, something like that. For R3 it is just volume measure. So in R4 we can define some other measure also. In R2 also we can do other measure like probability measure, or there is a two-dimensional probability or integration, two-dimensional integration, like the double integral. So measure actually the all generalized all these things. So integration, this probability, this length, area, everything is measured. So under the one platform, one umbrella, everything is there. So measure theory is above all these things, all Riemann integral or Lebesgue integral or area, volume, everything is measured. So similarly, you can in similar way for in R, we can extend our measure on other set in R2, and you can write a say disk as a union of rectangle, and you can write a rectangle as a union of disk. That we can do, but that needs some analytical proof. Analysis in two dimension is analysis in R2 is needs some metric space concept to write some disk as a union of rectangles, something like open intervals as a union of some closed intervals. You can write always the open interval union of some closed intervals. So this is the basic idea of different measures in different in R2 or R3. Obviously, you can measure in not only in R2 and R3, you can measure in some general space also, space of say, function space or metric space of matrix. You can define some measure, but we are mainly deal with measure on R and R2 for usual set. So this is the one extension of this type of measure. Next one is important is this. So how do you define a integration? How do you define integration on of a curve or function? This is just finding area. Is area under the curve. So again the area. Now we can define some Lebesgue-Stieltje measure on that. Say if f is of this function, and we can define a measure something like that. Say this set is A is a closed set, a closed interval. So integration that measure on that A is just integration. It is say A to B closed interval. A is the A to B closed interval. So it is just A to B, and then some integration of this integration. But we can define some other measure also, like say mu dash, like that. Say A to B fx on some other mu of some other d mu x or d other, say mu 2x or mu 1x. Another mu 1x is another measure. Mu 1 is another measure. So we can define, this is called Lebesgue-Stieltje integral. So what is the definition of this? The definition is obvious. How do you define this Riemann integral? You define Riemann integral like that. You're in school book, you define like that, limit n tends to infinity, and you just some n intervals and take the limit. And what is this? This is sum over f of a plus ih. H is actually what? H is that, okay, what is H? H is just B minus A by N, that is just H, into that B minus A into H. This is the height, and you have to multiply it with the length, that base. Then take over I equal to 0 to n minus 1. So this is the basic idea to find the area. Now, for This is for the mu A. But for this Lebesgue-Stringel integral, it's the same thing. You have to put the limit n tends to infinity from I equal to 0 to n minus 1, and you have to take the function on that value, functional value. But this is the last thing, that b minus a by n, this is the length of this interval. But instead of the length of this interval, you are just taking another measure on that, of that interval, whatever is closed or both open or singleton thing. Because for a single element, this measure is okay, we just take this. So this is a basic difference with Riemann integral and Riemann-Stieltjes integral. In Riemann integral, we just take the functional value and then multiply it by the interval, length of the interval. But for Riemann-Stieltjes integral, you are taking the functional value, multiply by the not by the length of the interval, you have some other measure. It may be a counting measure, it may be another measure on this interval, or it may be another function on this interval, measurable function. So this is called Riemann-Stieltjes integral. And all the properties like from a to b plus b to c, the integration is a to c. That is also true for Riemann-Stieltjes integral also. That the theorems for Riemann integrals also true for Riemann-Stieltjes integral also. Some theorems are not true, but mainly the basic almost many theorems are true basically for Riemann-Stieltjes integral. And one thing is, another thing is important, that product of two measure, or there is called Fubini's theorem. This is in syllabus, but I'm not going into that. I just I'll state the definition of what is called product measure or product of two sigma algebra. What is product of two set? It is called Cartesian product. We know what is Cartesian product of two set. It is just set of all A, B ordered pairs such that A belongs to A and B belongs to B. Now the question, if there is a collection of two sets, say it is a one sigma algebra script F and another script F1 and script F2, what is the product of these two? Now the idea is this, not only for that sigma algebra, if it is any collection of set, subset of A and a subset of some, say, A or subset of B, so therefore, okay, take the set as omega 1 for F1 and omega 2 for F2, universal set. Now F1 is a set of collection of sets of omega 1, subset of omega 1. F2 is a collection of sets of omega 2. That may not be a sigma algebra, maybe sigma algebra, whatever, it is any collection. The definition of this, the product of two set is like that. It is a set of all union of all Cartesian, sorry, it is a collection of all Cartesian product like that. Like it's just take a set from this A Cartesian product B, where A is coming from this script F1 and B is coming from script F2. So what is the idea? Idea is say, okay, if we have a Borel sigma algebra on that, so any interval is a Borel set on R, and here is any interval is a Borel set. Now in the product, say this is A, this is B, this is a two element of sigma 1 and sigma 2. Here sigma 1 and sigma 2 both are Borel sigma algebra. We just take the what is the Cartesian product of these two sets? A cross B, this set actually, this rectangle. This rectangle is the Cartesian product of these two intervals. If it is a closed interval, both are closed, then it is a just closed rectangle. So this is in F1 cross F2. But the problem is this F1 may be F1 is any, say F1 is any collection of any collection of, say, subset, or B is another any collection is a collection of subset. It may or may not be algebra or semi-algebra or sigma algebra. Then script F1 cross script F2 by definition is also a collection of some sets in omega. That is a subset of that. Remember that A cross B is a subset of omega 1 cross omega 2. So this is a actually collection of, this is a sub collection of power set of omega 1 cross omega 2. So this is just a element, this is a sub collection of this subset of omega 1 cross omega 2. But the point is, if F1 and F2 are two sigma algebra, two sigma algebras, then sigma 1 cross sigma 2 may not be a sigma algebra. And many cases not a sigma algebra over that sigma 1 cross omega 1 cross omega 2. So their product is not a sigma algebra. Why? Because the idea is this. So you just take some small examples on R, say took some intervals on R, you take any intervals or maybe union of some intervals, right? And you are taking some intervals or union of some intervals. Then if you take the Cartesian product, you will get some union of some rectangles. So this is the union of some rectangles. But remember that, so if you have a this in R, this one side, this is a, say this is R and this is R. Now you are taking Borel set here, say A, B, C, and Borel set here, say C, D, like that. And the Cartesian product of these Borel sets are some union of some intervals. But the converse is not true. So if you take two intervals here, one interval say like that and another interval like that, then this union is not a Cartesian product of any two set. This set, this union, say this is A, this rectangle is say U1, this rectangle is say U2, your union U1 union U2, this is not a Cartesian product of some set A and B, where A is in script F1 and B is in. It's not that. We can't represent that union of two intervals, union of two rectangle cannot be a product of cannot be a Cartesian product of two set in one is F1 and another is F2. It can't be, because if you take this part here and this part here, then this will go to the whole rectangle, this whole thing. And if it is smaller that, then you just left something. So that's the problem. That means if script F1 and script F2 is a sigma algebra, then your script F1 cross script F2 is not a sigma algebra. Then what you have to do? You have to take the smallest sigma algebra. This is called smallest sigma algebra. Say this is a class. The C1 is a class of set. A class of set or set of set, class of subset of omega. Then this is notation as smallest sigma algebra containing that script C. So you have to take all the set in the collection and you have to make it a sigma algebra, including other sets. So if script F1 is a sigma algebra on say omega 1, script F2 is a sigma algebra on omega 2, then your script F1 cross script F2, this is not a sigma algebra, but you have to make it a sigma algebra, so you have to take the smallest sigma algebra. This is the smallest sigma algebra, and that is called the product sigma algebra. That is called the product sigma algebra. So product sigma algebra means not the product of two sigma algebra. The smallest sigma algebra containing the F1 cross F2. Similarly, you can prove that is a theorem, is a big theorem, that Borel sigma algebra on R2, it is not just Borel sigma algebra of R1 cross Borel sigma algebra R2. It is not that. It is just the smallest sigma algebra containing these two is this. You can prove that. One can prove that the Borel sigma algebra on R2 is just by construction is the smallest sigma algebra containing Borel sigma algebra cross Borel sigma algebra. So this type of smallest sigma algebra is important, and then we can talk about that product of two sigma algebra, and this is just the smallest sigma algebra containing this type of Cartesian product of two set. First from the sigma algebra F1, and second from the sigma algebra F2. Now you have to define on a measure. Say now we have a omega 1 and corresponding sigma algebra, and there is a measure, say mu1 on that, and script omega 2, and that script f2 is another sigma algebra on omega 2 and another measure. Is like you can talk about, you can think like a probability. That is a sample space, this is event space, and this mu1 is a probability. And there is another sample space, another event space, and another probability function. You can take that as a special case. Now you are going to in the product space. What? So we just product these two. So this is a new space, new sample space. Say omega 1 is a head tail, you are tossing a coin, and omega 2 is a throwing a die. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now the new sample space is H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6, T1, T2, T3, T4, T4, T5, T6. It is a product of H, T set, Cartesian product with the set containing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now this is your new sample space, product space. Now what will be a new sigma algebra? Again, it is not that sigma script 1 as product script. The smallest sigma algebra containing these two. But how do you find a measure? It's called product measure. Now that is slightly typical. What is the problem with this? If you have a set A in script f1 and a set B in script f2, or better I write like A1 and A2, that would be better. So A1 in script f1 and A2 in script f2. Now we know what is, this is known to us. What is mu1 of A1 and mu2 of A2. We know what is mu1 and mu2. So that is known. Now we have to define the product measure on that. So the product measure mu1 cross mu2 define with this is a definition of A1 cross A2 is just mu1 A1 into, it is just into. Our into means our plus 3 product multiplication. What is known in plus 3. It's just 2 into 3 is 6, 7 into 2 is 14, like that. So this is by definition. This is the definition of product measure. But the problem is we are defining the product measure on the special type of set, only for the rectangle. So like a probability of a rectangle is the product of two probabilities of the two different the height and base. Product of like any measure of some rectangle is a product of the measure of the one side and the another side. But that your element of your sigma algebra need not be in the of the form A1 cross A2. That's the problem. You say in your R2, the Borel sigma, there is some disk also there. Disk is also, this set is a Borel set in R2. But how do you find the area of this? Area of a rectangle is just find the length of the one side, length of the other side, you just take the product. But how do you find the area of this? Or how do you find this area of this set of set? This set is also a Borel set. This is also a Borel set. How do you find the area of this? You know how to find the length in one direction and the other direction, both directions. Here it is the omega 1 is R, omega 2 is also R. Script f1 is Borel set, Borel sigma algebra. Script f2 is also Borel sigma algebra. Your mu1 and mu2 both are length measure. Now mu1 cross mu2 is an area measure. But how do you find this area? The idea is same. Since it is a Borel set or Borel in the elements of a Borel sigma algebra on R2, you can write this. It is the smallest sigma algebra containing this f1 cross f2. You can write this as a union of some rectangles. Countable union. So you can always write a countable union of some rectangles. This type of all disk or something. Now you know what is the area of these rectangles. So you can find what is the area of the countable union. Remember, there is one problem. This union may not be disjoint. So we have to know how to find the measure of some union when it is not disjoint. We know for it is for finite case, like probability. In probability, we know how to find this. That is easy. Yeah, like in say if A1 and A2 are or A1, A or B are to set in sigma algebra, and A union, this is also in that sigma algebra, then we know how to find the length. that we know. This is just length of measure of A plus measure of B minus measure of A intersection B. And you also know for the finite case. Finite case we know it is called inclusion exclusion principle. It is called inclusion. You know it is from class 11. You know inclusion in class 11 book. It is there. Inclusion in the probability, not for the any general measure. For probability, you know what is inclusion and exclusion principle. It's just class 11 knowledge. So this is just, you know, what is this? It is sum over all ai equal to 1 to n, then minus mu sum over all I not equal to j, or sorry, I less than j, mu I ai intersection aj, then plus minus like that, I j k, that measure of, or it may be probability, or maybe length, or maybe area, whatever, any measure, what measure you are considering, that, then minus of 4 at a time, there's plus for 5 at a time, last one is that measure of intersection of all this. And what will be plus or minus? That you have to depends on the even or odd. If it is even, then negative. If it is odd, then plus. So it is minus 1 to the power n plus 1. So this is the for finite case. But the problem is for the general sigma algebra, how do you know the measure of this countable union? That thing. For that, you need this type of limit of the set, what we discussed in the first 2 lectures, the limit of sets. You know, the lim sup or lim inf of this set, lim inf of, or lim sup of an. This is just a sequence of set. You need some concept of lim sup and lim inf, and from that we can find what will be the measure of the union. You need this type of concept, lim sup and lim inf, of a sequence of set. And then if it is a increasing set, a sequence of set, that is every set, A2 is a superset of A1, A3 is a superset of A2, then their union is just the limit of that set. And if it just drop down to the set A, that means it's a decreasing sequence of sets. Say A1 A2 is a subset of A1, A3 is a subset of A2. Then also the limit, we can find the limit. The limit is the intersection of all this set, and in that case we can find the union or the measure of this union. But it's just not the plus, just the series. It needs some extra work. You have to first find that A1 equal to B1, then A2 equal to B2 equal to A1 union A2 minus A1. You have to take the disjoint thing. You have to make it a disjoint. Like that, if your sets are like this, you first choose this set. Say this is my first set. The next set is not the whole B. This is our next set. The third set is like that. The first set you choose that. In second, you don't choose A2. It is A2 minus A1. In third, you don't choose A3. A3 minus A1 union A2, like that. And in that case, that B1, B2, B2 are disjoint. Now we can just add because they are disjoint. So this actually taken care with that lim sup and lim inf things, and we discussed in the first video. And we are not going in general for general measure. We'll prove it for probability. When we start probability, we'll show how to find this probability of this union of some countable union of some events when they are not disjoint. We'll not discuss for the general measure. We'll discuss for the probability, but the proof is merely the same. What we prove in probability, that is exactly same in measure, because in probability and in measure they are basically same, except the one thing, the probability of the whole space omega is 1, but for measure it is infinite. It may not be infinite, it is a finite measure. So what is called finite measure? So finite measure means finite measure. We call it just finite measure if the mu of this omega is finite. And sometimes it's called sigma finite. Sigma finite measure. What is sigma finite measure? If omega can be written as union of some ai's, I equal to n, and each ai is finite, then it is called sigma finite. Each ai is finite, then it is called sigma finite. countable linear. So like a real number, the length measure is a sigma finite, because you can write the whole real line as a countable union of some finite measure, say 0 to 1, 1 to 2, all are finite, all are measure is 1. It's a countable union of some measure 1 set, minus 1 to 0, minus 2 to 1. So this is a countable collection of sets or intervals. There each set has a measure 1, so it is called sigma finite. So whatever it is, a sigma finite or is a any other measure, the proof of this thing or proof of some result in probability is exactly same for the general measure, except some special cases where this finiteness is needed, or this probability 1 is like probability of A complement is 1 minus probability of A. In measure, that is not true. Obviously, that's not true for general measure. But the other thing, that if A is a subset of B, then probability of A less than or equal to probability of B. This proof are exactly same for the general measure as well as the probability. So we will not discuss the proof in this context. We will discuss the proof of this all result in our probability concept. So this is the last video for measure theory. I stop now.